Hey guys, it's Master Grade Jess from here in GTS, and this is the first time we're ever going to be trying to do a whole video essay kind of deal. I've seen them around everywhere, and I really want to get into it so we can talk about different topics that we enjoy. But like I said, this is the first time, so I still have to get the camera right and all of that. In this case, sometimes in the editing process, the camera will show me looking at the screen over here, but it's because I wrote out a whole script. So I don't mess things up. So I might be looking here instead of over there. Like I said, a lot of figuring out. I hope that you guys enjoy this. Remember to leave a like, leave a comment, leave a dislike if you guys didn't like it. Tell us how we can do it better. If you agree with what I say or what I didn't say, do let me know. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. But with that, let's begin. It's no surprise to most of my followers that Evangelion is my favorite when it comes to the question of favorite mecha anime, as I spoke about it last year in episode number 4 of season 2 to better explain how Evangelion shaped the genre.
To me and to a lot of people and everybody, Eva is definitely the show that really changed the way that people all around the world, and especially in Japan, viewed anime.
So when I heard about the final movie coming out, I was more than ecstatic and waited patiently to watch it once it hit the Canadian market. And with the news of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, I sat down and rewatched the whole series again with Tess by my side, as this would be her first time watching the whole thing. Evangelion tore through her psyche and eventually settled into a deep annoyance towards Shinji Ikari and other characters. I don't blame her though, as I feel that most of us, including me, felt the same way when watching it for the first time. And it's because of this reason that Evangelion is my favorite anime in the genre. Disclaimer. Spoiler warning for anyone who has not watched the original or new adaptations of Evangelion. There's going to be a bunch of spoilers since we're going to be focusing on the end of the original series, the End of Evangelion, and the last movie for the rebuild, which is Thrice Upon a Time. Evangelion came from the mind of Hideaki Anno, who back in 1991 fell into a deep clinical depression due to some hardships stemming from his past work that sculpted the path of the Evangelion series as it ran through its production. Accompany this with his disdain towards the Japanese otaku lifestyle, along with budget cuts, and you get all the psychological drama that has become synonymous with Evangelion. When the series first aired in Japanese television, it was aimed towards a younger audience, so it's of no surprise that with the adult themes scattered throughout the show did not garner high ratings. But when it was moved to a later time slot, this time for adult viewership, the show amassed a huge following. The question here is why? Why did it amass a huge following? And thus, going back to my statement of this being the reason as to why Evangelion is my favorite. Hideaki wove a compelling story, albeit confusing at times, by creating characters that were based off of him, all depicting a different part of his personality. Shinji Ikari, the main character, is without a doubt a representation of his mental state during those times, even going on to state that he identifies with Shinji in both the conscious and unconscious manner. From What Were We Trying to Make Here, drafted in July 1995, during production of this new series, Anno wrote, I tried to include everything of myself in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Myself, a broken man who could do nothing for 4 years. A man who ran away for 4 years. One who was simply not dead. Then one thought, you can't run away, came to me, and I restarted this production. It is a production where my only thought was to burn my feelings into film. For this reason, I fell in love with Evangelion, a relatable story about one's battle through depression, a narrative built around the real woes of day-to-day life. Nothing sugar-coated into some fantasy story of a generic strong willful protagonist, who at the time were more than rampant in anime, but instead a series which depicted broken people with real problems. Though, most would say that both the internal and external conflicts presented in the series are fixable through therapy and professional help, the unfortunate reality is that we don't all seek, or have the luxury of seeking, this kind of help. As a person, I saw a bit of me in Shinji. Scared and afraid to connect with people due to the trust issues built upon past experiences. Shinji, not being able to talk to his father, spoke to me on such a personal level that I related completely. Asuka's facade of a strong person, when in reality she is nothing but vulnerable underneath, is dealt in such a way to let us connect with those emotions which we may have felt at one point. It goes without saying that the original ending of Evangelion was nothing more than a perfect storm of external problems, all which led to the very divisive episodes 25 and 26. Anno, who ran out of money and thus was forced to try and cram his original ending, which we later got in End of Evangelion, into 2 episodes. When looked at closely, we realized that the End of Evangelion was just the 2 last episodes of the series, but expanded upon. In a nutshell, in order to work through budgeting issues, Anno analyzed all the main characters, all who came to the same realization as Shinji. Shinji learns to accept his existence and also how to live with others, no more running away and accepting that life can hurt.
Maybe I could love myself. Maybe my life could have a greater value. That's right. I am no more or less than myself. I am me.
This can all be very confusing as the last 2 episodes aren't very viewer friendly, and for most of us, we have to rely on our research to understand what in the world we have just watched. I personally accept this ending as, after delving deeper into Hideaki Anno's own life, I saw the ending as more of an exposition of his thoughts, his own personal woes, his personal growth, but we'll get to that later. Moving on to End of Evangelion, which is arguably my favorite movie from the franchise, we begin to expand on that ambiguous ending of the series. When the End of Evangelion came out, it left many asking questions once more, but I believe to a lesser extent. Now, bear with me. I know how this seems, just another pretentious Evangelion fan. And though you may be right, I am a fan. I do feel that what I have to say can answer some questions. It's safe to say that the End of Evangelion did what its predecessor could not. Show instead of tell. Taken from a beautiful breakdown written by Chris Lambert from the page Film Colossus. So, quote, End of Evangelion takes all of this exposition from episode 26 and reworks it to show rather than tell. It's a stronger visual demonstration of the emotional journey Shinji experienced in episode 26, with a lot of refinement and more tension. Keep in mind that End of Evangelion was Hideaki Anno empowered once more, with no budget constraints along with no censorship to worry about. Once more, we are met with a lot of exposition, only this time accompanied with beautiful visuals to help us, the viewer, understand the self-realization of Shinji. And yes, the now classic scene of Shinji strangling Asuka helps uncover more. I have not mentioned one critical word to the small dissection of the endings of Evangelion. Loneliness. Arguably the centerpiece of the series. The bittersweet focus of it all. Loneliness. Every character in this series is lonely, from Shinji to Masato. Everyone is pushing everyone else away, all thanks to their past fears, but also a direct cause of the AT fields. AT fields are destroyed at the end of Evangelion during the beautiful scene of Huge Ray bringing upon the third impact, human instrumentality, when all the beings on Earth are turned into LCL, better known as Orange Fanta. Without AT fields, beings can connect, become whole, a collective consciousness. Going back to the strangling scene, both the first and last hold meaning, and to quote Chris Lambert once more on the last scene when Shinji returns to reality, Shinji strangling Asuka. It highlights the emotional difference between instrumentality and reality. Intimacy has transformed from affection to violence. That's Shinji's first reaction, to hurt, to kill. I want to mention that Chris goes into depth regarding that scene, and you can go read his thoughts. I highly recommend it. I will leave the link in the description. And so, with all of this, we go back to how the series ending and the movie ending are the same. Shinji realizes that it's okay to be alive, that you will get hurt, that despite us wanting to hide within our imagination, that even though we may not want to connect with people because of the fear of being hurt, it is something we all will have to face one day. Reality. Life can hurt, but it can also be very loving. Thus bringing us to the conclusion of the second retelling of the story. Disclaimer, I will not be delving into the first 3 movies of Rebuild here. If you'd like to see more on that, let me know and I can look at doing a separate video on them for you guys. So, like I said, let me know in the comments. Thrice Upon a Time, an apt name, as this is Hideaki Anno's 3rd attempt at giving us an ending. Let's focus on the last 40 minutes of the movie, the part where Shinji goes into the anti-universe with Gendo, his father. Shinji in this movie is not the same as he was back in the original 2 endings. But wait, I'm lying. Shinji, after an hour and 35 minutes, is not the same as before. Throughout the movie, he is nothing but a blank slate, traumatized by the events of the previous movies. A shell of a person, someone questioning himself and his purpose, and wait a second, it's literally the same old Shinji. Up until, like I said, the 1 hour and 35 minute mark. So much that Tess once more looked at me saying, to hell with this guy. Once that mark hits, Shinji becomes a confident character. And finally, after so long, as a fan, I felt so giddy. And I turned to Tess this time and said, finally. And she replied back, yes, finally. And so, we get Gendo talking to Shinji. An actual conversation between father and son. A meeting of minds, trying to understand each other. 26 years for this. 26 years for a conversation. Though, eerily, we get callbacks to the original endings of the Evangelions with many different scenes mimicking what we had seen before. Although, it may seem very familiar for a second, the next, it doesn't. But why? So that's what we're going to explore here. Because Gendo does most of the talking here. Gendo talks to Shinji, and Shinji murmurs a few words while also asking his father some important questions which open up the door to understanding these characters even further. One of them being, and we hear Gendo tell Shinji how he's looking to create a world with no AT fields, no barriers between people. Again, something that has been wanted since the original. And now, as clear as day, we understand that Gendo just wants to connect without fear. He just wants to see his wife again. A noble wish, though one which is being sought after the wrong way. Gendo can now bend fate to his will. He is basically a god. Though there is only one problem. He gave up his humanity to do this, only to realize that he didn't really give up his humanity. Shinji no longer is scared of being loved or not by his father. Instead, he wants to understand him, connect. And it's here we finally understand Gendo is still human, and he is afraid of letting someone in, afraid to connect, isolating himself, being lonely by his own choice of running away from reality. Gendo was like Shinji, or better yet, Shinji was like his father, afraid to make connections, until he met his love, EoE, who pulled him from his loneliness and showed him what it was like to connect with someone, no longer needing to hide himself from the world, no need for loneliness. It all comes back full circle, the same message as before, only this time, Shinji has grown and matured. Hideaki Anno has grown and matured. Bam! This is why Evangelion is my favorite mecha anime. This is the answer. Evangelion is not just the telling of a story, it is the journey of Hideaki Anno finding the will to live, as cliche as it sounds. Finding that life is absolute shit at times, but it's better to live the reality of life and face it than to live in an imaginary world where those problems don't exist. Think of this scene, but instead of Shinji uttering these words, imagine it's Hideaki Anno. And Miss Marie did come for him. She came to him, literally falling from the sky like an angel when he was on that roof, just like she came back for him in the anti-universe, seemingly saving him from disappearing into nothingness from his own thoughts. Just like Mayoko Anno came to Hideaki Anno's rescue to bring him to the real world, to reality. Thrice Upon a Time ends with Shinji and Marie walking away to live their life. A life that is now far away from the world of Evangelion, which seems to merge and blend into the real world, seemingly being left behind at the same time. Moving on from the world of Evangelion, just like Hideaki Anno is doing now. It's over. His masterpiece has been written. Evangelion is in itself a look into Anno's life, a true example that the best art comes from raw emotion, from true feeling in life, an expression of who we are and what we will grow into. That is what art is. And for that, I say, thank you, Evangelion. And goodbye, Evangelion.